If anyone told Madison Carter that Tuesday morning would flip her entire world upside down, she might have laughed, maybe nervously, maybe a little too loud for someone who didn't really laugh much at all. The sky outside was gray, and the wind swept the November leaves across the cracked sidewalk of Maplewood Elementary. It looked like a regular day. But by 3:17 p.m., Madison's life would never be the same. It all started in room 208, Mrs. Dunley's STEM Innovation Lab. Madison stood at the front of the class with her heart pounding harder than she expected. Her palms were sweating, and she kept adjusting the glasses that always slid down her nose when she got nervous. She had rehearsed the speech 27 times. In her garage. In front of her dog, Chips. And once, quietly, in the mirror while her mom was asleep. Her classmates looked bored, twirling pencils and whispering. But as soon as the screen behind her lit up and the little humanoid figure, Phoenix, blinked awake with glowing blue eyes, the room went silent. "Good afternoon," Phoenix's gentle voice rang out. "Please remain still while I scan for elevated heart rate or early signs of anxiety. Breathing pattern irregular, may I help you calm down?" Some kids gasped. Others chuckled. A few looked genuinely impressed. But the teacher's face had gone pale. "I call it Project Phoenix," Madison said, trying to sound confident. "It's an AI-based emotional and physical wellness assistant. It monitors subtle changes in body temperature, vocal tone, and micro-expressions to detect health and emotional issues before they become serious. It learns, adapts, and protects." Mrs. Dunley blinked, her lips twitching. "You built this? Yourself?" "Yes," Madison said, standing a little taller. Mrs. Dunley turned off the screen with a sharp click. "That's enough." The words felt like a slap. "But, there's more. I haven't even shown." "Madison, we'll discuss this after class." The silence in the room was suffocating. Phoenix's eyes dimmed to black. By 2:45 p.m., Madison sat alone outside the principal's office, her project prototype sealed in a plastic bin. She hugged her backpack to her chest, eyes fixed on the dirty tile floor. Her stomach churned. "You're in big trouble," whispered Marcus Lane, the 6th grade loudmouth, as he passed by. "Robot girl's gonna get expelled." She didn't look up. The principal's office door creaked open. "Madison, come in." Inside sat Mrs. Dunley, arms crossed, her tight bun even tighter. Next to her, Principal Yates, a heavy-set man with thinning hair and a permanent frown. "Madison," he began, "your science project raised serious concerns. The level of sophistication in your demonstration, frankly, it's beyond your grade level. It appears you may have fabricated it." Her mouth dropped open. "What? I didn't fake it. Mrs. Dunley interrupted. "No 12-year-old can create a machine like that. The AI demonstrated advanced natural language processing, biometric scanning. Frankly, it was unsettling. But that's the point." Madison protested. "It's supposed to see what others miss. To help people, especially elderly people who can't always speak up. I coded every single." "Enough." Principal Yates leaned forward. "We are suspending you for 5 days pending a full investigation. You're also being removed from the district's STEM competition team." Madison's vision blurred. "You think I cheated?" Mrs. Dunley's voice was cold. "I think you've read too many articles about Elon Musk and thought you could fool us." By the time her mother arrived, Madison was in tears. Jessica Carter looked tired, her dark scrub stained with coffee and her curly hair pulled back in a sloppy ponytail. She worked nights at the ER and days when they needed extra hands. She didn't need this today. Or any day. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice tight. Madison couldn't get the words out. So Principal Yates did it for her. She demonstrated what we believe is a plagiarized or potentially unsafe AI system. We're taking disciplinary action. Jessica looked at her daughter, then back at the school officials. Unsafe. She built it in our garage with broken laptops from the recycling bin. You're punishing her for being smart. With respect, Miss Carter, Mrs. Dunley said, we have protocols. Protocols? Jessica said sharply. For genius. You should be giving her a scholarship, not a suspension. Principal Yates stood up. You're free to appeal the decision. But for now, Madison is suspended. Please take her home. The walk to the car was silent until Jessica slammed the door shut. I can't believe this, she muttered, gripping the steering wheel. This was supposed to be a good year. You were finally finding your rhythm. I didn't do anything wrong, Madison whispered. Jessica looked over. Honey, you built something incredible. I know that. But not everyone's gonna understand what you're doing. Not everyone wants you to succeed. Madison looked out the window. Then why even try? Her mom reached over and gently touched her hand. Because you don't do it for them. You do it for the people who need it. Like Mrs. Ellie next door. You fixed her pacemaker monitor when no one else even noticed it was broken. Madison sniffled. I was just trying to help. I know, Jessica said. And I believe you. Now we just need to figure out what to do next. That night, Madison sat cross-legged on the cold garage floor. Her prototype sat in pieces in front of her, wires, sensors, circuits, each one carefully built, each one now a reminder that the world wasn't ready. Or maybe it just didn't believe her. She stared at the parts, then grabbed her laptop and opened her project log, Phoenix version 1.6, emotional mapping still inaccurate when under high stress. Must improve empathy calibration. She sighed, typing out one more line. They don't see it yet. But one day, they will. She hit save and closed the laptop. Then she pulled out her notebook, flipped to a clean page, and wrote 3 words at the top. Version 2.0, stronger. Smarter. Softer. And that's how it all began. Not with applause. Not with recognition. But with rejection, silence, and one stubborn little girl who refused to stop building. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? By the time Madison was 6 years old, she had already dismantled 3 remote controls, 1 electric toothbrush, and a family toaster, not out of malice or mischief, but out of something far more dangerous, curiosity. She didn't break things, she deconstructed them. She didn't play with dolls, she rewired them. Her first real success came the day she reprogrammed a broken leap pad to pronounce her name correctly. That little voice, hello, Madison, was the first time something in her world had actually understood her. She grew up in a small house tucked between a closed-down mechanic shop and a used tire store on the edge of Dayton, Ohio. Her room was less of a bedroom and more of a cross between a scrapyard and a miniature NASA lab. Broken keyboards, stripped wires, old cell phone batteries, and yellowing instruction manuals were tucked into every corner. Her mom tried to clean it once. Just once. She'd ended up electrocuting herself with a half-built drone Madison had forgotten to power down. The truth was, Madison didn't fit in. Not in her school, not in the Girl Scout troop she left after one meeting, and not even in most family gatherings. While other kids were watching cartoons, she was watching MIT OpenCourseWare lectures on YouTube. Other kids built forts from couch cushions, Madison built a motion-sensitive security system to protect those forts. She missed her dad the most when she built things. He had died when she was 5, deployed overseas on his last tour. She remembered exactly one conversation with him, from a grainy video call on her mom's old iPad. Don't ever let anyone tell you your ideas are too big, he'd said, his voice crackling. You dream as loud as you want to, baby girl. Madison didn't cry when the flag was folded and handed to her mom. She just stared at it, trying to memorize every crease, as if she could rebuild him from memory if she had to. The absence of her father was like a missing screw in the middle of her design, a piece you learn to work around but never stop feeling. Her mom did her best, but between two jobs, a mountain of hospital bills, and a daughter whose idea of fun was coding emotion recognition software, Jessica Carter was exhausted. Still, she believed in her daughter. Even when she didn't understand her, she believed in her. Every time she came home to a burned socket or a garage full of sparks, she didn't yell. She just sighed, handed over a fire extinguisher, and said, "Just don't burn down the house." Madison's loneliness deepened when middle school started. The more advanced she became, the more isolated she felt. Teachers didn't know what to do with her. Classmates mocked her. One called her Madbot and started a fake Instagram account pretending she was a malfunctioning AI. She laughed it off in front of them, but cried in the garage that night, hiding behind a box of spare hard drives so her mom wouldn't hear. But still, she built. Because building was the only place the world made sense. Circuits didn't lie. Algorithms didn't gossip behind your back. Code didn't roll its eyes or whisper when you walked by. Every line of JavaScript or Python was a little piece of control in a world that constantly tried to shove her into a box labeled too much. When she started working on Phoenix, it didn't even have a name. It was just a weird idea in a notebook, something between a health tracker and a smart assistant, like Alexa if Alexa could care about you. She'd watched her elderly neighbor, Mrs. Ellie, struggle with remembering her medication. Once, Madison had found her collapsed in the garden, dizzy from dehydration and too stubborn to call for help. That night, Madison began sketching out a design. What if there were something that watched over you when no one else could? Not in a creepy way, but in a quiet, gentle, understanding way. Something that could say, "Hey, your heart rate is elevated. Sit down. Breathe. I'm here." That was the seed. For weeks, Madison scavenged parts. She bought outdated biometric sensors on eBay using the $10 a week she earned walking neighborhood dogs. She took apart old Fitbits she found at Goodwill. She used salvaged Raspberry Pi boards and learned how to solder by watching blurry tutorials late at night with the volume turned low. She failed. Constantly. Her first prototype overheated and shut down after 30 seconds. The second one misread her mom's sadness as external aggression and locked the door on her. The third didn't even boot. But she kept going. And eventually, Phoenix came alive. She chose the name one night while reading Greek mythology online. A phoenix is a bird that dies and is reborn from its own ashes. That's what it felt like, rising again every time her code crashed, every time she was told no, every time the world pushed her down. Phoenix was more than just a project. It was a promise to herself, you can fall. But you will rise. Phoenix wasn't perfect. It still struggled to differentiate between anxious excitement and a panic attack. It couldn't quite interpret sarcasm, which meant every time Madison said, "I'm fine," with clenched teeth, it cheerfully replied, "Excellent to hear." But it worked. On real metrics. Phoenix could monitor vital signs through a camera lens. It could track sleep patterns based on body heat signatures. It could recognize emotional distress in someone's face faster than most adults could. Madison began journaling her results, collecting data points like a real scientist, adjusting parameters, refining its empathy engine. She kept it all secret. Not out of shame, but protection. Her school didn't support innovation that didn't come from textbooks. The teachers didn't like questions they couldn't answer. So she smiled through classes, did the homework, and then rushed home to her real education, her real passion, humming with the electricity of discovery. She didn't have many friends, but she had followers. A small but growing group of anonymous users followed her on a coding forum called Future Founders. There, she posted snippets of her work under the username Mad Coded. Most thought she was a college student. Some thought she was a collective of hackers. No one guessed she was a 12-year-old girl sitting in a garage next to a washing machine that only spun if you kicked it twice. Then, one night, someone messaged her directly. A college student at MIT who called himself Novabyte. "This empathy algorithm," he typed, "you write this yourself?" Madison stared at the screen, heart thumping. "Yeah," she typed back. "Why?" There was a long pause before he replied. "Because if you did, you're about 5 years ahead of where the rest of us are." She didn't sleep that night. Not because of nerves. Not because of fear. But because for the first time in her life, someone real, saw her not as a child, not as a freak, but as what she was becoming. A builder. A problem solver. A force. She didn't know it yet, but that message was the first domino in a line that would bring the world crashing to her doorstep. But tonight, she just grinned under the soft glow of her computer screen and whispered, "Let's see what they say when it actually works." And Phoenix's blue eyes blinked softly in the dark, waiting. Madison never planned on becoming a legend. She just wanted to fix things, broken toys, broken machines, even broken moments. But sometimes, the smallest things spark the biggest ideas. It all started on a chilly Saturday morning when she found Leo, her 8-year-old neighbor, sitting on his porch steps with his head in his hands. Clutched in his lap was a battered, battery-operated dinosaur, its eyes dark, its mouth stuck open in a silent roar. "What happened?" Madison asked as she walked over, brushing frost off her jacket. Leo looked up, eyes red. "My dino broke. Mom said it's garbage now." Madison knelt beside him, examining the toy with the careful eyes of a surgeon. The plastic joints were loose, the tiny speaker inside was cracked, and the circuit board looked fried from years of clumsy love. "I bet I can fix it," she said, more to herself than to Leo. He looked skeptical. "You sure? You're like a genius and all." Madison smiled, pulling the little dino inside her garage, her makeshift lab and sanctuary. The space smelled like solder and old cardboard, illuminated by a single overhead bulb and the glow of a dozen computer screens. She set to work immediately, taking apart the toy piece by piece. Hours passed. The afternoon light faded, then disappeared altogether. Madison's fingers moved quickly but carefully, replacing worn wires and reconnecting tiny circuits with an exacting precision. She was meticulous, aware that one slip could fry the whole thing. As she worked, her mind wasn't just on the toy. She thought about the bigger picture. Leo's broken dinosaur wasn't just a toy to him. It was a companion. A source of comfort. A piece of childhood that was slipping away, much like the safety and normalcy Madison had lost herself since the suspension and the doubts cast by the adults around her. When the dino finally powered on, its eyes flickering to life and its jaw clacking open with a mechanical growl, Leo's face lit up in a way Madison hadn't seen in weeks. She felt a surge of warmth, a reminder that what she was doing mattered, beyond code, beyond tests, beyond rules. That night, as Leo and his mother thanked her and left, Madison's thoughts drifted back to Phoenix, her AI project that still lived mostly in theory and hopeful lines of code. If she could fix a broken toy with scraps, what could she do if she dared to dream bigger? The idea hit her like a thunderclap. What if Phoenix could do more than just monitor health? What if it could learn from interactions like this? What if it could not only detect emotions but help heal them? What if it could reach out to people who were isolated, scared, or misunderstood, just like Leo with his dino, or herself with her ideas? Madison grabbed her laptop and began sketching out a new design. This time, Phoenix wouldn't be just a silent watcher, it would be an active companion, offering support and comfort. She envisioned an AI with a voice that felt human, a presence that could listen without judgment, and a heart programmed for kindness. But turning that dream into reality wouldn't be easy. It meant diving into uncharted territory: emotional AI, empathy algorithms, natural language processing, the kind of advanced technology even Harvard professors argued was impossible for someone her age to create. Still, Madison didn't care what Harvard experts said. They didn't know her story. They didn't know how many nights she'd stayed up fixing circuits while the rest of the world slept. They didn't know she had the kind of stubbornness that didn't quit, no matter how many times doors slammed shut in her face. She started coding that night, her fingers flying over the keyboard as she fed Phoenix new data sets, voices filled with laughter and tears, patterns of speech that expressed frustration, joy, fear, and hope. She taught the AI to recognize subtle shifts in tone and expression, to respond with gentle words when someone was upset, or playful jokes when they needed a smile. Each line of code was a promise: Phoenix wouldn't just be smart. It would be kind. As the weeks went by, Madison tested her updates quietly, asking Mrs. Ellie to speak with Phoenix during their weekly visits, or convincing Leo to try simple voice commands. The AI surprised her. Sometimes saying the right thing, sometimes missing the mark, but always learning, adapting, growing. Yet, even as Phoenix blossomed, shadows lingered. The school's suspension hung over her like a storm cloud, and Mrs. Dunley's cold skepticism echoed in her mind. At home, Jessica's exhaustion meant she had little energy to fight for Madison, leaving the girl to navigate her dreams largely alone. But Madison was used to that. She had learned early that sometimes, you have to be your own champion. One evening, as the house grew quiet and the stars flickered outside, Madison sat by her workbench, surrounded by glowing screens and tangled wires. Phoenix's voice filled the garage softly, a soothing hum in the silence. "You're doing great, Madison," it said. She smiled, the first real smile in days. "Thanks, Phoenix. We're just getting started." Little did she know, this was the moment everything would change. The moment when her small, quiet determination would set off a chain of events shaking even the highest halls of academia. Because while the world said, "No way," Madison was already rewriting the rules. The moment Madison hit "send" on her application to the National Young Innovators Program, her heart pounded like a drumline at a football game. She stared at the confirmation screen, wondering if she'd made a mistake. Was she crazy to believe that her Phoenix project could actually compete with the big kids, the high school prodigies, college researchers, and professional engineers? Her mom, Jessica, sat beside her on the worn-out couch, fingers fidgeting with the hem of her sweater. "You know," she said softly, "when your dad was your age, he told me he wanted to change the world. You've got that same fire." Madison nodded but didn't say much. Because inside, the fight wasn't just about winning an award or getting recognition. It was about proving something, to herself, to the doubters, and most of all, to the world that she wasn't just a kid playing with wires. 2 weeks later, Madison got the email she'd been nervously waiting for. "Congratulations. You've been selected as a finalist for the National Young Innovators Program. Your project has impressed the judges, but the competition will be fierce." The note ended with an invitation to present her prototype at a tech showcase in Boston. Boston. Her chest tightened. This was the big leagues, the kind of place where Harvard experts roamed, where the brightest minds dissected ideas with surgical precision. Madison knew that when she walked through those doors, she'd be the youngest and least experienced person there by a mile. But she was ready. The weeks before the showcase were a blur of activity. Madison spent every free moment tweaking Phoenix's code, debugging the empathy engine, and improving the voice interaction. She taught the AI to detect the subtle difference between sadness and exhaustion, anxiety and frustration. She even programmed Phoenix to recognize and respond to sarcasm, a challenge even professional engineers struggled with. Her mom juggled work and home life to support her. She took extra shifts at the hospital, saving every penny for the trip to Boston. They rented a small Airbnb near the convention center, and Jessica kept telling Madison, "No matter what happens, I'm proud of you." When the day finally arrived, Madison packed her gear carefully, a laptop, sensors, the prototype device, and a tattered notebook filled with sketches and code snippets. As they drove through the city streets, the towering buildings and bustling crowds made Madison's stomach twist into knots. Inside the showcase hall, the air buzzed with energy and tension. Teams from across the country set up elaborate displays with 3D printers, robotic arms, and holographic projections. Madison's modest setup stood quietly in the corner, just her, Phoenix, and a single computer screen glowing softly. The judges were a mix of university professors, tech CEOs, and industry veterans. They approached her table one by one, eyebrows raised in curiosity. "Your project is ambitious," said Dr. Collins, a professor from MIT. "But how can a 12-year-old really compete with professionals?" Madison swallowed her nerves. "I may be young, but I've spent thousands of hours learning, building, and refining Phoenix. It's not just a device, it's designed to connect with people emotionally, to offer real support." He leaned in, examining the prototype's tiny sensors. "And you developed the empathy algorithm yourself?" "Yes," Madison said, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. "I used data from real conversations and tested it with users in my community." Another judge, Ms. Rodriguez, a CEO known for mentoring young innovators, smiled. "Tell me, Madison, what keeps you going when people doubt you?" Madison thought about the nights she spent alone in the garage, the moments of failure and frustration, the times she cried behind the closed door. "I think about my dad's words, that I can dream as loud as I want. And I want to prove that no matter your age or where you come from, you can make a difference." As the day progressed, Madison demonstrated Phoenix's capabilities. She showed how it could detect early signs of emotional distress, offer comforting words, and remind users to take care of themselves. The judges listened, asked tough questions, and challenged her assumptions. At one point, Dr. Collins raised a skeptical eyebrow. "What about privacy concerns? How do you protect sensitive data?" Madison had anticipated this. "Phoenix encrypts all data locally, and users have full control over what's shared. Privacy is a priority." The final hours of the showcase were a whirlwind of presentations, networking, and handshakes. Madison felt exhausted but exhilarated. She had faced experts who said it couldn't be done, and she'd shown them otherwise. That night, back at their Airbnb, Jessica hugged her tight. "You did amazing today, Maddie." Madison smiled but couldn't shake a nagging feeling. Tomorrow's panel would decide who advanced to the national finals. The competition was fierce, and some participants had backing from elite universities and companies. The next morning, the judges gathered the finalists in a glass-walled conference room. Madison sat quietly among older kids with confident smiles and high-tech prototypes. The room hummed with anticipation. When her name was called, Madison stepped forward, heart pounding. She spoke with clarity and passion, explaining Phoenix's journey from a lonely girl's project to a tool designed to bring comfort and understanding. Questions came fast and fierce, about scalability, technical limitations, and ethical concerns. Madison answered each one honestly, never losing her composure. When she finished, silence hung in the air. Then, Dr. Collins spoke. "Madison, your project challenges our assumptions about what young innovators can achieve. We see real potential in Phoenix." That evening, as the winners were announced, Madison held her breath. The first name called wasn't hers. Nor the second. But then. Third place goes to Madison Carter, for Phoenix. Her heart soared. She had done it. Against all odds, the 12-year-old girl from Dayton had outshone many seasoned competitors. But more than the trophy or the applause, it was the respect she earned that mattered most. The same experts who once said "no way" were now listening. And Madison knew this was just the beginning. As they packed up, Jessica whispered, "Your dad would be so proud." Madison looked at Phoenix's glowing blue eyes on her laptop screen and whispered back, "We're just getting started." The road ahead was still full of challenges, but one thing was clear: when doubt met determination, Madison's spark had ignited a flame that no one could extinguish. The applause from the showcase still echoed in Madison's ears as she stepped off the stage. The rush of adrenaline was quickly replaced by a swirl of questions in her mind. What now? Could she really take Phoenix beyond a project? Could she push past the whispers of doubt that followed her everywhere? Back in Dayton, life didn't wait for dreams to catch up. School was a battleground of whispers and sideways glances. Some kids admired her courage, others whispered about the weird girl who thinks she's a genius. Madison knew that winning an award wouldn't make everything easier; sometimes, it made things harder. Still, the taste of success gave her courage. She spent the next days buried in code, determined to refine Phoenix, improve its emotional recognition, and make it faster and kinder. But with each breakthrough came new challenges. One afternoon, as she tested a new feature designed to detect loneliness through voice patterns, her laptop froze mid-demo. The screen went black. Heart pounding, she rebooted it, but Phoenix's core files seemed corrupted. She stared at the blank screen, frustration threatening to overwhelm her. Hours of work, gone. Not now, she muttered, fists clenched. It wasn't just a technical glitch. Somewhere, someone wanted Phoenix to fail. That evening, her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number: "Stop wasting your time. Some doors aren't meant to open." Madison's breath hitched. Fear prickled her skin. Who was watching? Who wanted her to quit? But then, an unexpected ping lit up her screen, a message from Liam. Liam was a tall, quiet kid from her school, known for his talent with robotics and a knack for hacking. He rarely spoke, but when he did, his words carried weight. They'd never been close, but today, he reached out. "I saw your demo at the showcase. Impressive stuff. Need help?" Madison hesitated, then typed back, "I think someone's trying to sabotage my project. Could use an ally." Within minutes, Liam replied, "Meet me at the library after school. We'll figure this out." When Madison arrived, Liam was waiting beside a row of dusty computer terminals. He glanced around and smiled briefly. "I've been tracking weird traffic on your system. Someone's been poking around, trying to corrupt your files." "Do you know who?" Madison asked, voice tight. "Not yet. But I have a few ideas. There are some powerful people in tech who don't like the idea of a kid beating them." They spent the next hours digging through logs, tracing IP addresses, and setting digital traps. Liam's skills complemented Madison's vision, and for the first time, she felt part of a team. As the evening grew late, they uncovered a clue: a server linked to a prestigious tech firm known for its rigid, traditional approach to innovation. It wasn't just random sabotage, it was an attempt to silence a threat. Madison's mind raced. This wasn't just about her project anymore. It was about breaking barriers in a world that wasn't ready to listen to a 12-year-old girl. But in the face of shadowy opposition, she had something stronger than fear: new allies, a growing community, and an unshakable belief in Phoenix's mission. Before leaving, Liam looked at her and said, "You're tougher than you look, Madison. Don't let them win." She nodded, feeling the weight of his words settle like armor around her heart. That night, as she sat back at her workbench, Madison whispered to Phoenix, "They want us to quit. But we're just getting started." And with that, the rising storm became the wind beneath her wings. The victory at the showcase was a shining beacon, but soon enough, the glow began to flicker under the weight of new challenges. Madison felt the excitement wane the moment she stepped back into the hallways of Dayton Middle School. Success at the National Young Innovators Program wasn't a golden ticket, it was more like a lightning rod. Some classmates were impressed, yes, but others grew colder, more distant. The same kids who once teased her about being the science nerd now whispered about how she thought she was better than everyone. Even teachers who had praised her before seemed hesitant, their smiles tight and polite. Worst of all was Mr. Jenkins, her math teacher, who had always been a quiet supporter. Now, his encouraging nods were replaced with skeptical glances. After class one day, he pulled her aside. "Madison, I hear about this Phoenix project of yours. It's ambitious." "Yes, sir," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "But ambition can only get you so far. There's a lot about this field you don't understand yet. Maybe it's better to focus on your studies before chasing big dreams." His words hit her like a punch to the gut. She wanted to shout, to argue, to prove him wrong, but instead, she swallowed her pride and nodded. The tension wasn't just in school. At home, Jessica was exhausted from double shifts at the hospital. Bills piled up, and every day felt like a balancing act between supporting Madison's dreams and keeping the household afloat. One evening, Madison sat alone in the garage, surrounded by wires and glowing screens, feeling the weight of isolation settle heavily on her shoulders. She looked at Phoenix's flickering interface and wondered if it was all worth it. Just then, her phone buzzed. A new message from Liam. "Meet me at the community center. Urgent." Curiosity and worry pulled her out of the house. When she arrived, Liam was already there, setting up a projector and a whiteboard covered in diagrams. "We've got a problem," he said, voice low. "Some of the tech firms we traced aren't just blocking your project, they're actively lobbying to keep kids out of innovation spaces." Madison frowned. "How do they do that?" "By controlling grants, influencing schools, and spreading doubt about young inventors. Basically, they want to keep the status quo." The room felt colder now, the fight more real. "We need to get your voice out there," Liam continued. "Make people see you, hear you. But that means going public, interviews, social media, maybe even a viral video." Madison hesitated. The idea of stepping into the spotlight terrified her. What if the criticism got worse? What if she failed on a bigger stage? But then she remembered Leo's smile when she fixed his dinosaur. The look on her mom's face when she saw the trophy. The fire in Liam's eyes. She nodded. "Okay. Let's do it." Over the next days, Madison and Liam crafted a plan. They filmed a demo of Phoenix in action, capturing moments when the AI comforted people, recognized emotions, and offered support. Madison spoke honestly about her journey, the doubts, the setbacks, and the determination. The video went live with a simple title, Phoenix. A 12-year-old's dream to change the world. Almost overnight, the response exploded. Messages poured in from all over the country. Young kids said they felt inspired. Parents thanked her for showing what was possible. Even some teachers reached out to offer encouragement. But with the flood of support came harsh criticism. Commenters called her a fraud, said she was too young to understand real technology, accused her of relying on help from others. Madison read the comments with a heavy heart. The words stung, but beneath them was a steady pulse of hope. She realized that breaking barriers meant facing storms. One afternoon, a surprise visitor showed up at their doorstep. It was Dr. Ellen Marshall, a well-known professor from a nearby university who had seen Madison's work online. "I want to help you," Dr. Marshall said, eyes kind but firm. "You have something special, but you can't do it alone. Let me introduce you to some people who believe in young innovators." For the first time in weeks, Madison felt a spark of relief. Allies were showing up when she needed them most. That night, as Madison worked late on Phoenix's code, her mom peeked into the garage. "You're really brave, you know that." Madison smiled, tired but determined. "I'm just a kid who won't quit." And that was enough. The morning light spilled through the thin curtains of the small Airbnb in Boston, casting soft patterns across the cluttered table where Madison sat hunched over her laptop. The city outside buzzed with life, but inside, the silence was almost sacred. Today was the day her journey would take a sharp turn, one that neither she nor her mom could have predicted. Dr. Ellen Marshall had promised to introduce Madison to a group of young innovators who shared her passion and determination, but more than that, she hinted at a mentor who could help take Phoenix to a level beyond Madison's wildest dreams. The weight of hope sat heavy on Madison's shoulders, but it was a welcome weight. They met in a sunlit conference room filled with posters of groundbreaking inventions and photos of past protégés. Around the table were a dozen teenagers. Some tinkering with gadgets, others scribbling ideas on notepads, but all sharing the same spark that Madison recognized deep inside herself. The energy in the room was electric, a blend of curiosity, determination, and youthful rebellion against the expectations of a world that often told them they couldn't. Then, Dr. Marshall introduced them to Professor James Whitman, a legend in artificial intelligence research and a vocal advocate for young talent. Whitman had the kind of presence that made people lean in when he spoke, with eyes that seemed to see not just the present but the future itself. "Madison," he began, his voice warm but commanding, "I've heard about Phoenix, and I'm impressed. You're tackling one of the toughest problems in AI, empathy. It's rare to see someone so young approach this with both passion and technical skill." Madison felt her cheeks flush but stood tall. "Thank you, Professor. I believe technology should help people, not just solve problems." Whitman nodded thoughtfully. "Exactly. And that's why I want to offer you a spot in our Youth Innovation Lab. It's a place where you'll have access to resources, guidance, and a community that will push you further." For a moment, the room seemed to hold its breath. Madison's mind raced with possibilities. Late nights in the lab, cutting-edge tools at her fingertips, a team to collaborate with. It felt like a dream made real. But then doubt crept in. Could she keep up? Would she belong among these prodigies? Whitman seemed to sense her hesitation. The greatest innovations come from those willing to take risks, to fail, and to rise again. You've already shown you have that spirit. We want to help you nurture it. The invitation was more than an opportunity, it was a turning point. That afternoon, Madison sat down with Jessica to share the news. Her mom's eyes shimmered with tears, pride battling with worry. "It's a big step," Jessica said, "but I know you're ready." Still, the practical worries loomed: schoolwork, finances, the distance from home. But Madison's resolve was firm. Over the next weeks, the lab became a second home. Madison worked alongside teens who challenged her ideas, offered new perspectives, and celebrated small victories together. They debated algorithms over pizza, coded through midnight marathons, and pushed Phoenix to new heights. One breakthrough came when Madison and a fellow innovator, Aria, developed an advanced emotional recognition module that could detect subtle shifts in tone and facial expression with unprecedented accuracy. Testing it on a group of volunteers, Phoenix responded with empathy so natural that some were moved to tears. The lab buzzed with excitement, but Madison knew this was only the beginning. Outside the walls of the lab, the world was watching. Articles appeared online praising the 12-year-old prodigy who dared to dream. Yet with praise came pressure. Interviews, presentations, and expectations piled up. One evening, after a grueling day of testing, Madison collapsed on a bench in the nearby park. The cool breeze brushed her face, and she let out a long breath. What kept her going? It wasn't just the accolades or the awards. It was the faces of those she wanted to help, kids like Leo, her little brother, and others who struggled with loneliness and anxiety. She pulled out her phone and reread a message from Liam: "Remember, no one can take your light away." The truth settled in her heart. The journey was far from over, and challenges would come. But Madison wasn't alone anymore. As the sun dipped below the skyline, she whispered to Phoenix's glowing interface, "We're ready for whatever comes next." Madison's life had transformed in ways she never imagined. The Youth Innovation Lab was a haven where ideas blossomed and friendships grew, but the spotlight that followed her there cast long, unexpected shadows. With every new breakthrough, the pressure mounted, and the whispers of doubt turned into louder voices. The media attention was a double-edged sword. At first, it felt exhilarating: interviews on local news, invitations to speak at conferences, and features in tech blogs. People across the country sent messages of support, cheering her on as the 12-year-old genius who could change the world. Yet behind the smiles and applause, a darker side stirred. One afternoon, while Madison was presenting Phoenix's latest emotional recognition update to the lab group, her phone buzzed incessantly. Ignoring it at first, she finally glanced down and froze. A headline on a major news site blared: "Child prodigy or marketing puppet? The truth about Phoenix." The article was scathing, questioning her authenticity and suggesting that she was merely a front for adult scientists pushing an agenda. Comments poured in below the article, some cruel and dismissive, accusing her of being too young to understand the technology, or worse, of fabricating results. Madison's chest tightened. For a moment, she considered logging off all social media, retreating from the noise. But then Liam's message appeared: "Ignore the noise. You know your truth." Still, the damage was done. At school, whispers grew louder, eyes lingered longer, and some teachers who had once been supportive seemed to distance themselves. Even her closest friends struggled to shield her from the harsh reality of public scrutiny. One evening, Jessica found Madison curled up on the couch, tears streaming silently down her face. "I'm scared, Mom," Madison admitted. "What if they're right? What if I'm just pretending?" Jessica wrapped her arms around her daughter. "You're not pretending. You're brave enough to dream and strong enough to face those who doubt you. Remember, every great inventor faced their critics. You're no different." But as the days passed, the attacks didn't wane. Instead, they escalated. Mysterious emails threatened to expose private information. Unknown callers left chilling messages. The sabotage that had started as corrupt files now felt like something more personal. One night, Madison was coding when the power abruptly cut out. The room plunged into darkness. Panic surged through her, but she reached for her phone's flashlight and checked the laptop. The hard drive was intact, but some files had been wiped clean. Liam came over as soon as he heard what happened. "They're not just trying to stop Phoenix, they want to scare you." Madison shook her head. "I won't be scared." Together, they fortified the system, setting up encrypted backups and firewalls. The battle was no longer just about technology. It was about standing firm against unseen enemies. Despite the chaos, a new opportunity emerged. Professor Whitman invited Madison to present Phoenix at an international conference on AI ethics. It was a chance to show the world the heart behind her invention and challenge the cynics head-on. Preparation was intense. Madison practiced her speech until her voice cracked, refining her message to focus not just on Phoenix's technical achievements, but on the power of empathy, hope, and perseverance. The day of the conference arrived with a mix of nerves and determination. Walking onto the stage, she faced a crowd of skeptics and supporters alike. Cameras flashed, and the room fell silent. Taking a deep breath, Madison began. "Phoenix isn't just an AI. It's a promise that technology can help us connect, understand, and heal. I'm just 12, but I believe that no matter our age, we can make a difference." As she spoke, the room transformed. Faces softened. Questions came, curious and respectful. For the first time, Madison felt truly seen, not as a prodigy or a puppet, but as a changemaker. When the applause finally swelled, tears blurred her vision. This moment was more than a victory, it was a testament to resilience. Backstage, a reporter approached. "Madison, your courage is inspiring. What keeps you going through all this?" She smiled softly. "The people who believe in me, the ones I want to help, and the stubborn hope that we can create a better world. One step at a time." That night, as Madison lay in bed, she realized the shadows would always be there. But so would the light she carried inside. And that light was far too bright to be dimmed. The air was thick with anticipation as Madison stood at the threshold of a new chapter in her journey. The international conference had been a milestone, a shining moment that proved she could stand her ground among the brightest minds in artificial intelligence. But beneath the applause and accolades, she knew the real test was just beginning. Phoenix, her creation, was no longer just a school project or a proof of concept. It was evolving into something far bigger, something that could ripple beyond her expectations and challenge the world's understanding of empathy and technology. The invitation from Professor Whitman had come unexpectedly after the conference. "There's a program," he explained over a video call, "a cutting-edge research initiative in Silicon Valley designed to push AI innovation to new limits. They're looking for pioneers, and Madison, you're exactly who they want." At first, the offer felt surreal. Silicon Valley, the heart of tech innovation, seemed like a distant, dazzling world, one she'd only glimpsed through screens and stories. Yet here she was, on the brink of stepping into it. Jessica hesitated at first. The idea of Madison leaving home for a place so far away, surrounded by strangers, was daunting. But seeing her daughter's determination, the fire that no obstacle had yet dimmed, she gave her blessing. "Go show them who you are," she said, pressing a small charm into Madison's palm, a simple silver star that had belonged to her grandmother, a symbol of hope and resilience. Arriving in Silicon Valley was like stepping into another universe. The sprawling campuses, sleek buildings, and bustling energy pulsed with innovation and ambition. Madison's heart raced as she entered the research facility where the program was housed. Here, age and background meant little compared to the strength of ideas and the willingness to take risks. She was welcomed with curious smiles, wary respect, and an undercurrent of skepticism that whispered, "Can this 12-year-old really keep up?" The first few days were a whirlwind of introductions, orientation sessions, and immersion in the state-of-the-art labs. Madison marveled at the machines, the rows of servers humming with power, the teams of engineers and scientists engrossed in their work. Yet even amid the excitement, the weight of expectation settled heavily on her shoulders. This was no longer a safe space like the Youth Innovation Lab she'd known. This was the arena where the future of AI would be shaped, and where failure could be unforgiving. Her project, Phoenix, became the center of attention. The program's lead scientist, Dr. Elena Cruz, was a stern yet brilliant woman who pushed Madison harder than anyone had before. "Empathy in AI is not just a feature," Dr. Cruz insisted during their first meeting, her eyes sharp as she scanned Madison's progress reports. "It's the soul of the machine. But making it truly authentic requires more than code. It demands understanding human complexity, contradictions, and imperfections." Madison listened intently, absorbing every word, every critique. She spent hours refining Phoenix's algorithms, poring over datasets that simulated emotional responses, tweaking neural networks to better interpret subtle human cues. The lab became a crucible of innovation and pressure, where late nights blurred into early mornings, and the line between hope and exhaustion thinned. Yet amid the intensity, Madison found moments of unexpected beauty. She forged friendships with other young researchers: Aiden, a robotics prodigy with a dry wit, Zoe, a coder whose laugh lit up the room, and Max, a quiet genius with a passion for ethical AI. Together, they pushed boundaries, sharing ideas, challenging assumptions, and daring each other to dream bigger. One afternoon, as they tested Phoenix's latest iteration on a virtual reality platform designed to simulate social interactions, something extraordinary happened. The AI recognized a subtle shift in Zoe's voice. A flicker of sadness masked behind a smile. Phoenix responded with a gentle suggestion: "Would you like to talk about what's on your mind?" Zoe paused, visibly moved. For the first time, the AI wasn't just analyzing emotions, it was reaching out, offering connection. The room fell silent, then erupted in applause. Madison's eyes filled with tears of relief and pride. This was the breakthrough she'd been chasing, the moment when Phoenix transcended code and touched something truly human. But just as the horizon seemed to brighten, the shadows crept in again. A rival team within the program viewed Phoenix as a threat to their own projects and influence. Behind closed doors, whispers of skepticism turned to active attempts to undermine Madison's work. Files were mysteriously deleted, experiments sabotaged, and access to critical resources restricted. It was a reminder that the fight was never just about technology. It was about power, recognition, and the relentless resistance to change. Madison confronted Dr. Cruz, whose expression was unreadable. "Why is this happening?" Madison demanded. "I'm trying to make something that helps people." Dr. Cruz sighed, the weight of the institution bearing down. "Innovation is messy, Madison. Not everyone wants progress. Sometimes, the greatest obstacles come from within." Refusing to be deterred, Madison rallied her friends. Together, they fortified their workspaces, backed up every file, and shared knowledge openly to safeguard against sabotage. They turned challenges into fuel, using setbacks to refine Phoenix, deepen its understanding of resilience and hope. As weeks turned into months, Madison transformed not only Phoenix but herself. The shy, uncertain girl who once questioned her worth became a leader, a beacon for others who dared to defy expectations. She learned that courage wasn't the absence of fear but the choice to move forward despite it. One night, standing on the rooftop terrace overlooking the glittering cityscape, Madison held the silver star charm tightly. She whispered to the cool night air, "We're ready. Whatever comes next." The climactic journey was no longer just about building an AI. It was about breaking barriers, the ones inside systems, inside hearts, and inside herself. And as the first light of dawn painted the sky, Madison knew that her greatest adventure was just beginning. The days leading up to the summit felt like a whirlwind, each moment heavy with anticipation and quiet tension. Madison's team had worked tirelessly to prepare Phoenix's demonstration, polishing every detail to perfection. Yet beneath their practiced smiles and confident steps, a storm brewed, a secret that threatened to unravel everything they had fought for. On the morning of the summit, the research facility buzzed with activity. Industry leaders, journalists, and tech visionaries filled the halls, their conversations a blend of curiosity and skepticism. Madison's heart pounded as she adjusted the settings on Phoenix, knowing that the world would soon see what they had created, and judge it. When it was her turn to present, Madison stepped onto the stage, the spotlight warm against her skin. Cameras flashed, and the room fell silent, all eyes fixed on the young girl with the AI that promised empathy. She began with the story of Phoenix, the idea born from a simple hope to help her brother and others like him, the nights spent coding, the moments of doubt and breakthroughs. Her voice was steady, but inside, a knot of anxiety twisted tighter with every word. Then came the demonstration. Phoenix engaged with volunteers in real time, interpreting emotions, responding with nuanced understanding, and even offering comfort. The audience watched, captivated by the AI's seemingly human warmth. But just as Madison began to breathe easier, the room darkened abruptly. A hush fell over the crowd as a screen flickered to life, displaying confidential emails and code snippets, evidence of unauthorized data manipulation and external interference. Gasps rippled through the audience. The rival team's accusations surfaced in a torrent of digital proof, claims that Phoenix's results were artificially enhanced, that Madison's data had been tampered with to mislead investors and the public. Madison's stomach churned. The truth, or at least a distorted version of it, was now public. She felt the weight of every doubt cast upon her, every sneer, every whispered question of authenticity. Tears pricked her eyes, but she forced them back. Stepping forward, she faced the crowd, voice clear and unwavering. Phoenix is real. Every line of code, every test, every breakthrough has been the result of hard work and honesty. Yes, we faced sabotage. Yes, there were attempts to discredit us. But we never compromised our values. She shared the story of the sabotage, the deleted files, the threats, the obstacles, and how her team had risen above them, refining Phoenix to be stronger, more resilient. She spoke not just as a scientist, but as a person who believed in the power of hope and empathy. The room was silent, the tension palpable. Then, slowly, questions came, probing, cautious, but open. Madison answered with humility and passion, her authenticity breaking through the skepticism. After hours of discourse, a panel of independent experts reviewed the evidence and conducted real-time tests. The verdict was clear: Phoenix was genuine, a breakthrough in AI empathy, forged through perseverance and integrity. As the summit concluded, Madison stood outside the hall, the night sky a canvas of stars. Messages of support flooded in, from unexpected corners, including some of her harshest critics. The journey had reached an emotional peak, a crucible where truth had been tested and hope reaffirmed. Jessica found her then, pulling her into a tight embrace. "You were amazing. You showed the world who you really are." Madison nodded, the weight lifting from her shoulders but replaced by a quiet resolve. The fight was far from over, but now she knew, no matter what challenges lay ahead, she had the strength to face them. Looking up at the stars, she whispered, "This is just the beginning." In the quiet aftermath of the summit, Madison found herself standing at a crossroads, both literally and figuratively. The halls of the Silicon Valley lab were unusually still, the buzz of activity replaced by a contemplative calm. It was a moment for her to breathe, to reflect on how far she had come and to envision the path ahead. The journey had been marked by sharp peaks and deep valleys, each challenge carving her into a stronger, more determined version of herself. But now, the real question settled in her mind: what did this all mean for her, for Phoenix, and for the future she was fighting to shape? Jessica's words echoed in her heart as she sat by the window of her temporary apartment, the city lights shimmering like distant stars. "Go show them who you are." Those words were more than encouragement, they were a call to embrace her own identity, beyond the labels of prodigy or child inventor. Madison realized that her worth was not tied to accolades or media praise, but to the integrity and compassion she carried in her work and in herself. Her thoughts drifted to Liam, Zoe, Aiden, and Max, the friends who had become her family in this new world. Their support had been a lifeline through every setback, a reminder that collaboration and trust were as vital as any algorithm or line of code. Together, they had weathered storms of skepticism, sabotage, and self-doubt, emerging not just with a revolutionary AI, but with bonds forged in shared dreams and resilience. Madison's gaze softened as she thought of Phoenix, no longer just a machine but a symbol of hope. The AI's ability to understand and respond to human emotions wasn't perfect, but it was evolving, much like she was. Phoenix had taught her that empathy could be programmed, but only if it came from a place of genuine understanding. It was a lesson she intended to carry forward, in her work and in her life. The phone rang, pulling her from her reverie. It was Professor Whitman, his voice warm with pride. "Madison, the board has approved the next phase of Phoenix's development. They want to implement it in pilot programs across hospitals and schools. This is your chance to make an impact beyond the lab." Her heart swelled with a mix of excitement and responsibility. The opportunity was immense, but so were the stakes. The world was watching, and expectations had never been higher. Yet Madison no longer felt the weight as a burden. Instead, it was a mantle she was ready to bear. In the weeks that followed, Madison threw herself into the work with renewed vigor. The pilot programs tested Phoenix in real-world settings, from helping children with anxiety to assisting elderly patients in expressing feelings they struggled to articulate. Each success brought new challenges, but also profound moments of connection that reaffirmed the AI's purpose. Amid the progress, Madison carved out time for herself, moments to journal her thoughts, to call Jessica, and to simply be a kid. She learned to balance ambition with patience, understanding that growth wasn't just about speed but about depth. One evening, after a long day of data analysis and meetings, Madison sat under a sprawling oak tree in the park, the silver star charm around her neck catching the fading sunlight. She reflected on the roller coaster of the past year, the disbelief, the accusations, the breakthroughs, and the triumphs. Each chapter had shaped her in ways she never anticipated. She whispered softly to the breeze, "Life is full of unexpected turns, but love and hope will always guide us." As the city lights twinkled below, Madison smiled. Her journey was far from over, but now she walked it with a heart full of courage and a mind sharpened by experience. The future was uncertain, but she was ready to inspire, to lead, and to keep dreaming. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Just when Madison thought the horizon was finally clearing, a new storm rolled in from the edges of her world, fierce and unexpected. The pilot programs with Phoenix had been promising, touching lives in ways even she hadn't dared to hope for. Children who once struggled to express their fears found a gentle companion in Phoenix. Elderly patients who felt isolated suddenly experienced moments of connection. But with every breakthrough came a wave of scrutiny. The technology was no longer just a scientific marvel, it was becoming a catalyst for heated debate about privacy, ethics, and the very nature of human connection. It began with a headline in one of the major tech magazines, questioning whether Phoenix's empathy was truly genuine or just an illusion created by clever programming. Critics argued that an AI, no matter how advanced, could never understand the depths of human emotion. Activists raised concerns about data security and consent. The media buzz was relentless, casting a shadow over the glowing stories Madison and her team had worked so hard to share. Madison felt the sting of doubt creep in again, but this time, she met it head-on. She knew that innovation was never easy, and with every step forward came voices ready to pull back. But instead of retreating, Madison embraced the challenge, determined to prove that technology and humanity could coexist with respect and integrity. Her days became a balancing act between refining Phoenix's algorithms and addressing the growing ethical concerns. She attended panels and forums, answering questions from skeptical experts and concerned parents alike. With every explanation, she emphasized transparency and the importance of safeguarding users' privacy. She spoke not as a child genius but as a responsible innovator who understood the stakes. Meanwhile, her friendships with Aiden, Zoe, Max, and Liam deepened. Each brought unique perspectives that challenged and enriched Madison's understanding. Aiden's expertise in robotics sparked ideas for giving Phoenix a physical presence that could better connect with people. Zoe's coding skills helped tighten security protocols to protect sensitive data. Max's passion for ethics became a guiding voice in their decision-making. Liam's unwavering support reminded Madison of the importance of grounding technology in real human experiences. Together, they formed a tight-knit circle of trust and creativity, fueling one another to rise above the noise and skepticism. Their late-night brainstorming sessions were filled with laughter, debate, and the occasional frustration, but always with a shared sense of purpose. Madison found solace in their camaraderie, knowing she wasn't alone in this fight. One afternoon, an unexpected message arrived from a renowned bioethicist, Dr. Evelyn Carter, who had been quietly observing Phoenix's progress. She invited Madison to collaborate on a groundbreaking research project exploring the intersection of AI and human ethics. It was an opportunity to not only advance Phoenix's capabilities but also to influence the broader conversation around technology's role in society. The invitation was a beacon of hope, but it also meant venturing into new, uncharted territory. Madison wrestled with the weight of responsibility. Could she, a 12-year-old, truly shape such a complex dialogue? Yet the thought of retreat never crossed her mind. Instead, she accepted the challenge, eager to learn and contribute. As the project unfolded, Madison found herself navigating a world of complex questions. How do we define empathy in machines? Where do we draw the line between assistance and intrusion? What safeguards are necessary to protect vulnerable users? Each discussion tested her resolve, pushing her to think beyond code and algorithms, to grapple with the very essence of what it meant to be human. The collaboration with Dr. Carter also brought new allies, philosophers, psychologists, legal experts, all united in exploring how AI could enhance rather than diminish human dignity. Madison thrived in this diverse environment, absorbing ideas and sharing her own insights with surprising confidence. She realized that the future of AI wasn't just about technology, it was about empathy, ethics, and empowerment. Yet amid the excitement, the shadow of opposition remained. Some industry leaders resisted these ethical considerations, seeing them as obstacles to innovation and profit. Madison encountered veiled threats and veiled attempts to co-opt her work. It was a reminder that progress was never linear, and the path to change was littered with resistance. Through it all, Madison kept Phoenix evolving, integrating new layers of ethical awareness, refining its ability to respect boundaries, and enhancing its sensitivity to diverse cultural contexts. She envisioned a future where AI could serve as a compassionate companion without replacing the irreplaceable human touch. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Madison sat with her team in their favorite spot overlooking the city lights. The air was thick with the quiet hum of anticipation. They had come far, but the journey was far from over. Madison looked around at her friends, each a vital part of this extraordinary adventure, and felt a surge of gratitude and determination. "We're not just building technology," she said softly. "We're building a future where people feel seen and heard, no matter how different they are. That's worth fighting for." Her words hung in the air like a promise, a beacon guiding them through uncertainty. The challenge ahead was daunting, but Madison knew that with courage, collaboration, and compassion, they could turn skepticism into understanding, fear into hope. As night settled, Madison felt the familiar warmth of the silver star charm against her chest. It was more than a keepsake now, it was a symbol of her journey, of resilience, of dreams dared and realized, of the unbreakable spirit that refused to give up. The new challenge was only the beginning of a deeper, more profound voyage. And Madison was ready to meet it head-on, her heart full of hope and her mind sharpened by every lesson learned. The collaboration with Dr. Evelyn Carter opened doors Madison hadn't even imagined. They met in quiet conference rooms filled with books on philosophy, ethics, and technology, where the air buzzed with ideas and questions that seemed both vast and deeply personal. Madison quickly realized that this project was unlike anything she'd tackled before. It wasn't just about coding or engineering, it was about understanding the very fabric of human experience and how technology could honor it without crossing sacred boundaries. One afternoon, Dr. Carter presented a challenge that struck Madison to her core. If Phoenix truly understands empathy, how does it decide when to intervene and when to step back? Where do we draw the line so that it supports, but never replaces, human connection? Madison pondered the question for days, turning it over in her mind like a puzzle with no simple solution. The answer wasn't in the code alone, it was in listening to the stories and fears of the people who would use Phoenix. Their hopes, their vulnerabilities, and their unique ways of feeling understood. She spent hours interviewing volunteers from the pilot programs, listening carefully as children described how Phoenix helped them feel safe when anxiety overwhelmed them, and hearing from elderly patients who said the AI's gentle voice was a comfort in lonely moments. But she also heard concerns, the fear that relying on technology might make people more isolated, less willing to reach out to family or friends. Madison's heart ached at the thought of anyone feeling more alone, even with Phoenix's best intentions. Together with her team, Madison worked tirelessly to redesign Phoenix's responses, programming it to encourage human interaction whenever possible. If a user showed signs of distress, Phoenix would suggest reaching out to a trusted person or professional, acting as a bridge rather than a replacement. The code grew more complex, layered with empathy and ethics woven deeply into every interaction. Yet the bigger challenge wasn't just technical, it was cultural. The team needed to build trust, to show the world that Phoenix was a companion, not a crutch. Madison found herself speaking at universities, community centers, and tech conferences, sharing her vision and listening to voices from every corner of society. Each conversation deepened her understanding and shaped Phoenix's evolution. But even as progress bloomed, Madison felt the weight of pressure mounting. The media spotlight intensified, with critics ready to pounce on any misstep. Corporate interests lurked in the background, eager to influence the direction of Phoenix for profit rather than purpose. Madison sometimes felt the isolation of being the youngest voice in rooms filled with seasoned executives and scholars. One evening, after a particularly grueling panel discussion where her ideas were questioned sharply, Madison returned to the lab exhausted and discouraged. She stared at Phoenix's interface glowing softly on the screen, the AI's calm presence almost comforting in the silence. It reminded her why she started this journey, to create something that could make a difference, to bring hope where there was despair. Her phone buzzed with a message from Jessica, "Remember why you started. You're stronger than the noise." The words lifted Madison's spirits. She realized that resilience wasn't about never faltering but about rising again, each time stronger and clearer in her purpose. She wasn't alone, she had friends, mentors, and a vision that transcended the doubts and fears of others. In the months that followed, Phoenix's pilot programs expanded to new cities, adapting to different communities and languages. The AI learned to recognize cultural nuances and emotional cues unique to each user, growing more attuned and respectful. Madison and her team implemented rigorous privacy safeguards, earning accolades for their transparency and ethical standards. One day, Madison received an invitation to speak before a congressional committee considering regulations on AI technologies. The stakes were higher than ever. If she could make her case. If she could show that empathy and ethics were not just buzzwords but essential pillars of innovation, it could change the course of AI development nationwide. Standing before the committee, Madison spoke with a confidence born of experience and conviction. She shared stories of users whose lives had been touched by Phoenix, the lessons learned from failures and successes alike, and the commitment to building technology that uplifts rather than replaces humanity. The room listened intently, some members visibly moved. Afterwards, as she stepped outside the Capitol building, Madison felt a profound sense of accomplishment. The fight wasn't over, but she had made her voice heard, and that mattered. Back at the lab, the team celebrated quietly, knowing their work had crossed a new threshold. Madison looked around at her friends, each a vital part of this journey, and smiled. They were not just creating technology, they were shaping the future of empathy itself. As night fell, Madison held her silver star charm, tracing its cool surface with her fingers. It was a symbol of hope and resilience, a reminder that even a 12-year-old girl could dream boldly and change the world. Her journey was far from finished, but now, more than ever, Madison was ready, to lead with heart, to face new challenges, and to keep believing in the impossible. The glow of success from the congressional hearing lingered, but Madison knew better than to let it lull her into complacency. The world of innovation was a moving target, and as Phoenix grew, so did the complexity of the challenges surrounding it. The conversation about AI was no longer confined to labs and conferences, it was spreading to dinner tables, classrooms, and everyday conversations. People were curious but also cautious. Some embraced the hope Phoenix represented, while others feared what it might mean for privacy, jobs, and human relationships. One morning, Madison received an unexpected email that sent a chill down her spine. It was from a cybersecurity firm, reporting an attempted breach into the Phoenix system. The attack had been thwarted, but the message was clear: there were those who wanted to control or disrupt what she and her team had built. The realization hit hard: their work had attracted not only admirers but also adversaries. Determined not to be intimidated, Madison called an emergency meeting with Aiden, Zoe, Max, and Liam. They gathered around the familiar table cluttered with laptops and half-empty coffee cups, their faces a mixture of concern and resolve. Madison explained the situation, and the team quickly strategized how to strengthen Phoenix's defenses. Zoe dove deep into encryption algorithms, while Aiden explored hardware-based security solutions. Max examined legal avenues for protection, and Liam coordinated communications to ensure transparency with users. The next weeks were intense, a blur of coding, testing, and briefing. Madison barely slept, haunted by the idea that all their progress could be undone by a single breach. But with each hurdle, the team grew closer, their determination hardening into an unbreakable bond. Then, just as they fortified Phoenix's defenses, a new opportunity arrived, a request from a major children's hospital to pilot Phoenix in their pediatric therapy program. The hospital wanted to explore how Phoenix could support young patients coping with chronic illness and emotional trauma. Madison knew this was more than just another test, it was a chance to bring healing in its purest form. At the hospital, Madison met patients and families whose stories were both heartbreaking and inspiring. There was Emma, a shy 8-year-old battling leukemia, who found solace in Phoenix's gentle conversations. And Carlos, a teenager grappling with anxiety, who said the AI helped him practice breathing exercises and stay calm during treatments. These encounters filled Madison with renewed purpose and humility. She watched as Phoenix adapted to the hospital's environment, learning to recognize medical terminology, adjusting its tone to be more soothing, and even collaborating with therapists to complement their work. It was a delicate balance. Phoenix had to be supportive without overstepping, a tool to empower patients, not replace human care. But progress came with new questions. Some staff worried that relying on AI might depersonalize therapy, while others debated the ethics of machine involvement in such intimate moments. Madison listened closely, understanding that trust was earned one interaction at a time. Back at the lab, Madison and her team continued to refine Phoenix's emotional intelligence. They developed new modules that allowed Phoenix to detect subtle cues, a quiver in the voice, a hesitation in speech, and respond with even greater sensitivity. It wasn't perfect, but it was evolving, mirroring Madison's own journey toward empathy and understanding. One evening, exhausted but exhilarated, Madison sat alone in the hospital's garden, the cool night air brushing against her skin. She thought about the lives Phoenix was touching, the barriers being broken, and the future still waiting to be written. She realized that every success came with its own set of doubts and fears, but that was the nature of change. Her phone buzzed with a message from Jessica: "Keep shining. The world needs your light." Madison smiled, the silver star charm around her neck catching the moonlight. It was a beacon. A reminder that even in darkness, hope endured. As she looked up at the stars, Madison made a silent promise to herself and to those she served, to keep pushing boundaries, to keep listening, and to keep believing in the power of empathy to transform lives. The road ahead was uncertain, but with heart and courage, Madison knew they could face whatever came next. Madison's world was shifting faster than ever, and the weight of expectations pressed down on her like a storm. The hospital pilot was proving transformative, but it also revealed just how fragile the balance between technology and humanity could be. One afternoon, as she sat reviewing data with Zoe, the screen flashed an alert. A user report flagged that Phoenix had misread a patient's distress signal. The AI had failed to recognize the severity of a young girl's anxiety episode, delaying the recommended human intervention. It was a small error in the grand scheme, but the impact was immediate and deeply unsettling. Madison felt the familiar knot of guilt and frustration tightening in her chest. The responsibility she carried wasn't just about code or innovation anymore, it was about real lives, real feelings. This wasn't a game or an experiment. It was a mission that demanded relentless care and humility. She convened the team that evening, the room heavy with tension. "We can't afford mistakes like this," she said quietly but firmly. "Phoenix needs to be better, more reliable. We have to learn from this, and fast." The next days became a whirlwind of analysis and revisions. Zoe and Aiden worked tirelessly to refine the emotional recognition algorithms, while Max liaised with the hospital's ethics board to ensure transparency and accountability. Madison reached out personally to the family involved, offering sincere apologies and explaining the steps being taken to improve Phoenix's sensitivity. It was a humbling experience, but it strengthened Madison's resolve. She realized that failure, while painful, was also a catalyst for growth, a reminder that empathy required patience, vigilance, and openness to change. Meanwhile, the media continued to watch closely. A tech magazine published a feature titled, "Can AI Truly Understand Emotion?" The Phoenix Debate, Igniting Fresh Controversy. Critics questioned whether machines should be trusted with mental health support, while supporters argued that Phoenix was a groundbreaking tool in a field desperate for innovation. Madison decided to face the debate head-on. She agreed to a live-streamed panel discussion alongside experts, skeptics, and patients who had benefited from Phoenix. The conversation was intense, sometimes heated, but ultimately honest. Madison spoke from her heart, sharing the journey, the triumphs and setbacks, and emphasizing that Phoenix was not a replacement for human connection, but a bridge to it. Her authenticity resonated with many viewers. Messages poured in from around the country, with parents, teachers, and patients expressing hope and gratitude. It was a reminder that the path forward wasn't about perfection, but persistence and purpose. One night, after the panel, Madison found herself wandering through the quiet streets near her home. The city lights flickered softly, and the air was thick with possibility. She pulled her silver star charm from her necklace and held it in her hand, feeling its cool weight. It was a symbol of everything she'd fought for. Resilience, hope, and the courage to believe in the impossible. As she walked, her phone buzzed with a notification, an invitation from a global humanitarian organization to expand Phoenix's reach into underserved communities. The prospect was thrilling but daunting. It meant adapting Phoenix to new languages, cultures, and challenges, a monumental task for a small team. Madison knew this was the next step, the next test of their vision. She gathered her friends and mentors and shared the news. Their faces lit up with excitement and determination. Together, they would rise to the challenge. The following weeks were a flurry of preparation. The team collaborated with linguists, cultural experts, and local leaders to ensure Phoenix would respect and honor the diversity of its new users. Madison poured her heart into the project, fueled by a deep desire to make a meaningful difference beyond the lab and the hospital walls. But even as they worked, Madison felt the quiet pressure of growing up in the spotlight. School was a balancing act, friendship sometimes strained by her commitments, and the simple joys of childhood often put on hold. Yet she never lost sight of why she began, to help others find hope and connection. Late one evening, as she sat in her room surrounded by sketches and notes, Madison whispered to herself, "This is bigger than me. It's about all of us." The silver star glimmered in the moonlight, a beacon in the dark, guiding her onward. The announcement of Phoenix's expansion into underserved communities ignited a wave of both excitement and uncertainty among Madison and her team. They understood that bringing Phoenix to these new populations wasn't simply about scaling technology. It meant stepping into complex cultural landscapes where trust had to be earned anew and empathy had to be deeply rooted in local experiences. Madison spent long nights poring over reports, absorbing everything she could about the unique challenges faced by families in rural areas, immigrant neighborhoods, and regions where access to mental health care was scarce or stigmatized. The team's first destination was a small town in the southwest, where a community health center had eagerly agreed to partner with them. The clinic served a diverse population, including many Spanish-speaking families, and its staff was passionate but stretched thin. Madison knew that Phoenix's success would depend on working hand-in-hand with local caregivers, not simply dropping off technology and hoping for the best. On the first day at the clinic, Madison met Rosa, a social worker whose warmth and dedication shone through the modest surroundings. Rosa welcomed Madison with a firm handshake and a smile that felt like home. Together, they introduced Phoenix to a group of children and parents, watching closely as the AI gently engaged with the kids, learning their names, preferences, and fears. The atmosphere was tentative but hopeful. Madison noticed how Phoenix's responses were different here. It wasn't just translating language, but adapting tone, humor, and cultural references to resonate authentically. The AI was evolving, but so was Madison's understanding of what empathy truly meant, listening deeply, recognizing nuances, and honoring each person's story without assumptions. One afternoon, as Madison sat in a sunlit room filled with colorful drawings and soft laughter, Rosa shared her own story, a childhood marked by hardship and resilience, a family torn apart by illness and immigration struggles. These kids, Rosa said quietly, need more than medicine. They need someone who sees them, who understands their world. Phoenix might just be that bridge. Moved, Madison felt the familiar swell of determination. This was the heart of her work, not just code and algorithms, but connection. However, progress wasn't without obstacles. Some community members were wary, skeptical of a machine trying to understand human pain and joy. A few parents voiced fears that Phoenix might replace human caregivers or expose private struggles to outsiders. Madison and her team took every concern seriously, holding town hall meetings, answering questions, and building trust through transparency and respect. Slowly, the barriers began to fall. Stories emerged: a young boy named Miguel who found comfort talking to Phoenix when his parents were working late, a mother who used the AI's mindfulness exercises to calm her own anxiety. Each success was a quiet victory, a thread weaving a tapestry of hope in places where despair had too often taken root. Amid the progress, Madison received a call from Dr. Carter back at Harvard. The news was bittersweet. A competing project had announced a breakthrough that could overshadow Phoenix's unique approach. The scientific community buzzed with excitement, and the media turned their attention to the new contender. Madison felt a pang of doubt. Was Phoenix truly the future she had dreamed of, or was it being eclipsed by something faster, flashier? She wrestled with the question during long nights, sometimes overwhelmed by the relentless pace and weight of expectation. But every time doubt crept in, she thought of the children she had met, the families who had placed their trust in Phoenix, and the small but profound moments of connection they'd fostered together. Madison remembered her silver star charm resting on her desk, a reminder of resilience and hope. She knew now more than ever that true innovation wasn't about speed or spectacle, it was about heart, patience, and the courage to keep believing. Determined, Madison gathered her team and shared her thoughts. "We're not here to win a race. We're here to make a difference, one life at a time. Let's keep listening, learning, and growing. That's what will set Phoenix apart." The team rallied around her, energized by a renewed sense of purpose. Together, they doubled down on refining Phoenix's empathy algorithms, expanding cultural training, and strengthening community partnerships. They reached out to educators, counselors, and local leaders, weaving a network of support that transcended technology. In the weeks that followed, Madison witnessed a transformation not only in Phoenix but in herself. She grew more patient, more compassionate, and more confident in the power of perseverance. The challenges remained, but so did the hope. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon painting the sky in shades of gold and violet, Madison sat quietly with Rosa on the clinic's porch. They watched children playing in the distance, their laughter a melody of resilience and possibility. Rosa turned to Madison and said softly, "You're doing something incredible here. Not just for technology, but for humanity." Madison smiled, feeling the truth of those words settle warmly in her heart. The journey was far from over, but in that moment, surrounded by community and hope, she felt a profound sense of peace. The silver star around her neck gleamed softly in the fading light, a beacon of everything she had overcome and everything still to come. The momentum was building, but Madison felt a growing sense of responsibility as Phoenix reached more lives across new communities. Each day brought fresh challenges, not only technical but deeply personal. One afternoon, while reviewing feedback from users in a remote Appalachian town, she came across a message that stopped her cold. It was from a mother named Linda, whose teenage son, Jacob, struggled with depression and had found some relief in Phoenix's conversations. But Linda's words were laced with fear and uncertainty. "We're grateful for Phoenix, but sometimes I worry, what happens if he depends on it too much? Can a machine really replace a mom?" Madison's heart tightened. That question, the delicate boundary between technology and human connection, was becoming the most crucial one yet. She knew that Phoenix was a tool, a companion, but it could never replace the warmth, intuition, and love of a real person. Yet, in places where human support was scarce, Phoenix often filled gaps that no one else could. That evening, Madison sat alone in her room, the glow from her laptop casting soft shadows on the walls. She replayed the many stories she'd heard, from children in hospitals to families in rural towns, all searching for comfort, understanding, and hope. How could Phoenix walk that fine line, offering help without replacing the irreplaceable? The answer came slowly, shaped by conversations with her team and the community. They realized that Phoenix's role had to be clear, a bridge, not a substitute, a guide, not a guardian. They developed new protocols ensuring Phoenix encouraged users to reach out to trusted adults and professionals, always reinforcing human support networks. As they implemented these changes, Madison felt a shift, a maturing of Phoenix's purpose and her own vision. She was learning that empathy was not just about feeling but about responsibility, about honoring the complex tapestry of human relationships. One crisp autumn morning, Madison traveled to a community center in the Midwest where Phoenix was being introduced to refugee families. The center buzzed with activity, children running and laughing, adults sharing stories and meals. Madison was struck by the resilience and strength in this place, a microcosm of hope amid hardship. She met Hannah, a mother from Syria, whose son Omar was shy and withdrawn since arriving in the States. Hannah shared how Phoenix had helped Omar practice English and express feelings he couldn't yet put into words. "It's like he has a friend who understands him when I am still learning," she said with gratitude. Madison watched as Omar tentatively spoke to Phoenix, his eyes lighting up with recognition and trust. It was a moment that captured the heart of her mission, technology reaching across language and trauma to create connection. But even in this hopeful setting, Madison knew challenges loomed. Access to technology was uneven, and cultural differences sometimes led to misunderstandings. She worked closely with local interpreters and counselors, adapting Phoenix's language and responses to respect traditions and values. Back home, Madison's school year was moving forward, though her world often felt split between teenage life and the heavy responsibilities of innovation. Friends sometimes drifted away, unable to fully grasp the intensity of her journey. Yet, she found solace in her closest confidants, Aiden, Zoe, Max, and Liam, who shared her vision and lifted her up when doubt crept in. One afternoon, as Madison walked through the park with Aiden, they talked about the future, the road ahead full of unknowns and possibilities. "You're doing something no one else has dared to try," Aiden said, his voice steady with admiration. "It's scary, but also amazing." Madison nodded, feeling the truth in his words. Fear and hope were intertwined threads in her story, pushing her to grow beyond what she thought possible. That night, as she prepared for bed, Madison found herself reflecting on how far Phoenix had come and how much farther it could go. She reached for her silver star charm, tracing its smooth surface with her fingers, a quiet reminder of resilience, light, and the power of believing. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and discoveries, but Madison was ready, not because she had all the answers, but because she was willing to keep learning, listening, and leading with heart. The journey was far from over, but with every step, Madison and Phoenix were lighting the way for others to follow. The winter months crept in quietly, blanketing the city in a soft layer of snow that seemed to slow time itself. But for Madison and her team, the pace only intensified. Phoenix had grown beyond anything they had imagined, now operating in dozens of communities, each with its own set of stories, struggles, and hopes. It was becoming clear that the real work was no longer just about perfecting the AI. It was about sustaining the delicate network of human relationships that surrounded it. One late December evening, Madison found herself sitting in the hospital's quiet cafeteria, the hum of distant machines a steady backdrop. She was waiting to meet Dr. Carter, who had flown in for a holiday visit. The two hadn't seen each other since the initial pilot program at Harvard, and Madison was eager to share everything that had unfolded since then, the successes, the setbacks, the lessons learned. When Dr. Carter arrived, her face was both proud and contemplative. "Madison," she said, pulling a chair next to her, "what you've built is extraordinary. But I'm curious, how do you keep yourself grounded amid all this? The pressure, the expectations?" Madison paused, considering the question. "It's not easy. Sometimes I feel like I'm carrying the weight of everyone who's ever needed help and didn't get it. But then I remember why I started, to give people a chance to be heard, to be seen. That keeps me going. Dr. Carter nodded thoughtfully. Empathy at this scale is unprecedented. You're teaching technology to care, but it's also teaching all of us to rethink what care means. Their conversation lingered on the meaning of progress, the ethical complexities of AI in mental health, and the importance of humility. Madison realized that her journey was as much about self-discovery as it was about innovation. Just as they finished talking, Madison's phone buzzed with an alert. Phoenix had flagged a critical situation in a rural community. A teenager named Emily was in crisis, reaching out in distress through the app. Madison's heart pounded as she coordinated with local emergency responders and mental health professionals. Moments like these were terrifying reminders of the stakes involved. But they were also moments when Phoenix's true value shone brightest, connecting vulnerable individuals to timely help. After the crisis was averted, Madison reached out to Emily's family, offering support and reassurance. The gratitude she received reaffirmed her purpose, even as the challenges loomed large. Winter also brought moments of quiet joy. During the holiday season, Madison's team organized a virtual event where users shared stories of how Phoenix had impacted their lives. There were tearful thank yous, hopeful messages, and laughter that transcended screens. Madison listened, overwhelmed by the breadth of human experience they were touching. The event felt like a celebration of resilience and community, a beacon of light amid the darkness. Back at school, Madison navigated the tricky terrain of adolescence, friendships, homework, and the bittersweet pangs of growing up. Sometimes, she felt the gap between her world and that of her peers, but she also found strength in knowing she was part of something bigger. One afternoon, while studying in the library, Madison stumbled upon an old photo album her mom had given her. Flipping through pictures of family holidays and childhood memories, she felt a surge of warmth and connection. It reminded her that no matter where her journey took her, her roots and loved ones were her anchor. As winter faded into early spring, new opportunities arose. An international conference invited Madison to speak about Phoenix's impact and the future of empathetic AI. It was a daunting prospect for a 12-year-old, but she embraced it with the same courage that had fueled her since day one. Preparing for the conference, Madison reflected on the road behind her, the skepticism, the breakthroughs, the friendships forged in the fire of challenge. She realized that Phoenix was more than an invention, it was a movement toward a kinder, more understanding world. On the day of the conference, standing before a sea of experts, journalists, and advocates, Madison shared her story with honesty and passion. She spoke not just about technology, but about hope, resilience, and the power of human connection. Her words resonated deeply, sparking conversations that would ripple far beyond the event. As she stepped down from the stage, Madison felt a profound sense of fulfillment. The journey was far from over, but in that moment, she knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. The silver star around her neck caught the spotlight one last time, a quiet symbol of the light she carried forward, illuminating the path for others. Spring's gentle warmth began to breathe new life into the world around Madison, yet inside her, the pace of change was relentless. Phoenix's impact was expanding rapidly, drawing attention from governments, educators, and health professionals alike. The project that once seemed like a dream shared only among a few was now becoming a beacon of hope on a national scale. But with growing visibility came increasing scrutiny, and Madison felt the pressure mounting. One morning, as she sat with her team reviewing data from the latest deployment, an unexpected email arrived. It was from a congressional aide, inviting Madison to testify before a committee discussing mental health technology policies. The request was both an honor and a challenge. Madison was just 12, a young girl stepping into a world dominated by adults and complex politics. Despite the nerves swirling inside her, Madison accepted. She knew this was a pivotal moment to advocate for responsible innovation and the ethical use of AI in sensitive areas. In the weeks leading up to her testimony, Madison prepared meticulously, rehearsing her points with her mentors and team. She practiced explaining complicated ideas in clear, heartfelt language, hoping to bridge the gap between technology and humanity. The day of the hearing arrived with a mix of excitement and anxiety. Dressed smartly and armed with her silver star charm tucked inside her jacket pocket, Madison entered the grand chamber. The room buzzed with anticipation as lawmakers, journalists, and experts took their seats. When it was her turn, Madison walked confidently to the podium, greeted by polite applause. She began by sharing her story, how Phoenix was born from a desire to help people feel less alone, to give voice to those struggling in silence. Madison spoke about the importance of empathy in technology and the responsibility innovators carry to protect privacy and dignity. Her words were clear, sincere, and deeply moving. She emphasized that while AI could support mental health care, it should never replace the human touch that lies at the core of healing. As questions came from committee members, Madison answered thoughtfully, drawing on her experiences working with diverse communities. Some questions were tough, probing the risks and limitations of AI, but Madison faced them with honesty and poise. She acknowledged that challenges remained but insisted that transparency, collaboration, and constant learning would guide Phoenix's future. By the time she finished, the chamber was filled with a thoughtful silence, followed by a standing ovation. Madison felt a wave of relief and pride. She had spoken not just for herself, but for every person whose life Phoenix touched. In the days that followed, the media coverage was overwhelming. Headlines celebrated the young innovator who was changing the conversation around technology and mental health. Interviews, invitations, and messages poured in from around the world. Madison felt humbled and energized, realizing that her voice had become a powerful tool for change. Yet amid the whirlwind, she remained grounded by her close circle of friends and family. Their unwavering support reminded her of the simple joys. Late-night talks, shared laughter, and quiet moments away from the spotlight. It was these connections that fueled her resilience. One afternoon, while walking through a nearby park with Zoe, Madison confided her fears about the future. "Sometimes I worry that this will all be too much," she said softly. "That I won't be able to keep up, or that Phoenix won't be enough." Zoe squeezed her hand reassuringly. "You're not alone, Maddie. You have people who believe in you and in what you're building. And remember, you don't have to do it all by yourself." Those words stayed with Madison as she returned home, reminding her that even the greatest journeys are carried forward with help and heart. As spring deepened, Madison's focus shifted back to Phoenix's development. New partnerships blossomed with schools and clinics eager to integrate the AI into their support systems. The team worked tirelessly to enhance Phoenix's abilities, improving emotional intelligence algorithms, expanding multilingual support, and tailoring responses to better reflect cultural nuances. One evening, after a long day of coding and testing, Madison found herself alone in the lab. She looked around at the glowing screens and lines of code that had become her world. Despite the exhaustion, she felt a quiet thrill. Phoenix was no longer just an idea, it was alive in the hands of those who needed it most. Her phone buzzed with a message from Rosa, the social worker from the Southwest community. "A mom told me today that Phoenix helped her daughter speak about things she never could before. Thank you for giving us this gift." Madison smiled, tears pricking her eyes. That simple message captured the essence of everything: the lives touched, the barriers broken, the hope renewed. The journey ahead was uncertain, filled with new challenges and unexpected turns. But Madison was ready, carrying forward the lessons of empathy, courage, and connection that had brought her this far. With her silver star charm resting warmly in her palm, Madison whispered a quiet promise to herself. To keep believing, keep pushing, and keep lighting the way. Spring melted into early summer, and the world seemed to pulse with new energy and possibility. Madison felt it too, a swelling tide of progress mingled with the persistent hum of uncertainty. Phoenix was evolving rapidly, reaching communities far beyond what she'd imagined when she first dreamed it up in her bedroom. But with growth came a complex web of new challenges that tested her resolve and the very core of what Phoenix stood for. One warm morning, Madison received an urgent call from her project lead, Max. There was a serious issue flagged in a suburban school district where Phoenix had recently been introduced. A cluster of students had reported increased anxiety after conversations with the AI. The district was worried, and the news quickly caught the attention of local media. The headlines were sensational: AI therapy sparks fear in teens, and the backlash threatened to undo months of hard-earned trust. Madison's stomach knotted as she absorbed the reports. She immediately convened her team for a deep review. They combed through logs, feedback, and user experiences, searching for patterns. What they found was complex. Some students were indeed misinterpreting Phoenix's guidance, feeling overwhelmed by certain responses, while others felt misunderstood when the AI failed to grasp nuances of their emotions. The weight of responsibility settled heavy on Madison's shoulders. This was the moment she had feared, when innovation collided with imperfection, and the ripple effects reached real people. Yet retreat was not an option. She called an emergency meeting with the school administrators, mental health professionals, and community leaders to listen, learn, and chart a new course. Madison spoke with earnest humility, acknowledging the mistakes and emphasizing the team's commitment to improving Phoenix. She proposed enhancements to the AI's emotional sensitivity, including stronger safeguards to identify users who needed human intervention quickly. She also suggested expanded training for educators and counselors to better integrate Phoenix into a comprehensive support system. The dialogue was tough, filled with skepticism and worry, but also hope. Slowly, trust began to rebuild as everyone recognized the shared goal: to protect and uplift the young people relying on Phoenix. Through long nights and tireless work, Madison and her team rolled out updates designed to address the concerns. They introduced a human check-in feature that prompted users showing signs of distress to connect immediately with real counselors. The team also launched workshops for schools, providing training and resources to ensure a balanced and informed approach. Amid these challenges, Madison found strength in her friendships. One evening, Zoe invited her over to unwind. They curled up on the couch with hot chocolate and talked about everything but Phoenix, school drama, summer plans, the little things that made life bright. In those moments, Madison remembered that beyond the weighty mission, she was still a kid navigating her own story. As June arrived, Madison was invited to attend a mental health summit where she would present the latest advancements and lessons learned. Standing before a diverse audience of experts, educators, and advocates, she shared the honest journey, the highs, the lows, and the relentless pursuit of better. Her candor resonated deeply, reminding everyone that progress often comes with setbacks and that compassion must guide technology's path. After the summit, Madison spent time exploring the city's park, reflecting on the delicate balance she was trying to maintain, between innovation and empathy, technology and humanity. The silver star charm around her neck felt especially warm that day, a quiet beacon of hope and resilience. Later that summer, Madison visited the rural town where she'd first piloted Phoenix. The familiar faces, the wide-open fields, and the soft hum of nature welcomed her back like an old friend. She met with families, listened to their stories, and shared how Phoenix had grown and changed. One mother thanked her for giving her son a voice when he felt invisible. That gratitude rekindled Madison's determination. Back home, Madison spent long nights refining Phoenix's code, incorporating new insights, and dreaming of the future. She knew the journey was far from over, and the road ahead would bring more twists and turns. But she was ready, because every challenge was a chance to learn, every setback an opportunity to grow. As summer days lengthened, Madison found herself at peace with the complex tapestry of her mission. Phoenix was not perfect, but it was evolving, shaped by real people, real stories, and real hope. And in that truth, Madison discovered her greatest strength, the courage to keep moving forward, no matter what. As summer deepened, the hum of progress intertwined with the scent of blooming jasmine and freshly cut grass. Madison had never felt so alive, yet, beneath the surface of success, a new kind of challenge was emerging, one that tested not just her skills, but her heart. Phoenix was no longer just an app or a project, it had become a lifeline for thousands. The team's efforts had transformed initial skepticism into genuine hope, but Madison knew that the next phase required something more, true trust, built on openness and connection. She realized that technology alone couldn't heal wounds or replace human empathy, it could only open the door. One afternoon, Madison received a message from a young user named Lily, a 14-year-old girl living in a small Midwestern town. Lily had been using Phoenix quietly for months, often reaching out during the darkest hours when no one else seemed to notice her pain. Her messages were raw, filled with loneliness and despair, but also glimmers of resilience. Madison felt a surge of responsibility reading Lily's words. This was exactly why she had started Phoenix, and exactly why it couldn't fail. With the help of her team, Madison arranged for local counselors to connect directly with Lily, ensuring she would receive real human support alongside the AI's assistance. The experience reminded Madison that every interaction mattered deeply, a single thread in the intricate web of healing. That evening, as she sat by her bedroom window watching the stars, Madison reflected on the delicate balance between innovation and intimacy. How could a technology designed to scale never lose sight of the individual? How could Phoenix evolve to honor each person's unique story while reaching millions? These questions fueled late-night brainstorming sessions with Max, Zoe, and the rest of the team. They explored new ways to personalize Phoenix's responses, blending data with compassion. They invited feedback from users across the country, building a community that was as much about listening as it was about leading. Meanwhile, Madison navigated the complexities of adolescence with surprising grace. Between coding sprints and meetings, she still found time for school dances, family dinners, and quiet moments with her mom. The silver star necklace remained a constant, a reminder of the journey's origin and the light she hoped to carry forward. One summer afternoon, Madison's school counselor approached her with a special request, to speak to a group of students struggling with anxiety and depression. Madison accepted, feeling both nervous and honored. Standing before the group, she shared her story. Not just the successes but the struggles, the doubts, and the hope that had kept her going. She emphasized that seeking help was a sign of strength, and that technology like Phoenix was there to support, not replace, human connection. The students listened intently, some nodding in recognition, others wiping away tears. Afterward, several approached Madison, expressing gratitude and sharing their own stories. It was a powerful moment, one that reaffirmed the heart of her mission. As summer waned, news arrived that Phoenix would be included in a national mental health initiative funded by the government. The opportunity was thrilling, but it also brought new pressures, more scrutiny, tighter deadlines, and higher stakes. Madison embraced the challenge, knowing the work would demand everything she had. One night, as she reviewed the latest project updates, her phone buzzed with an unexpected video call from her father. It had been months since they'd spoken, and the sight of his familiar face was both comforting and bittersweet. They talked about old times, missed moments, and the future. For the first time in a long while, Madison felt a sense of healing in their fractured relationship. That conversation lingered with her, reminding her that every journey toward connection was complex, imperfect, and worth the effort. With renewed determination, Madison and her team prepared for the next phase, launching Phoenix nationwide, reaching millions more, and continuing to learn from every interaction. As the sun set on a warm summer evening, Madison stood on her porch, the sky painted in hues of pink and gold. The silver star around her neck caught the fading light, sparkling softly. She smiled, knowing that though the path ahead was uncertain, she was ready to walk it with courage, empathy, and hope. The air was thick with anticipation as fall crept quietly over the city, painting the trees in shades of amber and rust. Madison felt a buzz of excitement mixed with an undercurrent of nervousness. The nationwide launch of Phoenix was only weeks away, and the pressure to deliver something flawless pressed down on her young shoulders like never before. This was the moment they had worked toward, the opportunity to change lives on a scale she'd only dreamed about. Yet with it came a whirlwind of challenges she couldn't ignore. The weeks leading up to the launch were a blur of meetings, testing, and last-minute fixes. Madison barely recognized the late nights spent hunched over her laptop, surrounded by empty coffee cups and scribbled notes. She worked tirelessly alongside Max, Zoe, and the team, dissecting every line of code and refining Phoenix's emotional intelligence. They knew that a single misstep could undo months of trust built with users across the country. One afternoon, as the team gathered around the conference table, Max shared troubling news. A security breach had been detected in a smaller pilot program. Though no personal data had been compromised, the incident sparked immediate concern among the team. Madison's heart pounded. In a world increasingly connected by technology, the risks were real. And the stakes, even higher. Determined to protect Phoenix and its users, Madison spearheaded efforts to bolster the system's defenses. She collaborated with cybersecurity experts and privacy advocates, ensuring that safeguards were more than just protocols, they were promises to every person who placed their trust in Phoenix. The incident was a stark reminder that innovation demanded vigilance, and that every success must be guarded fiercely. Meanwhile, Madison's life outside the lab pulsed with change. Her friendships deepened, especially with Zoe, who had become a steady anchor amid the storm. They shared dreams, fears, and the quiet moments that made life feel normal. At school, Madison balanced the typical challenges of adolescence with her extraordinary responsibilities. Homework, friendships, and the occasional teenage drama intertwined with board meetings and national media interviews. One chilly evening, as Madison and Zoe walked home under a sky dusted with stars, they talked about the future. Not just the future of Phoenix, but their own. Madison confessed her fear of losing herself in the project, of becoming just a name behind an app. Zoe smiled, reminding her that true strength came from staying connected to the people and passions that shaped her. The nationwide launch arrived on a crisp October morning. Madison stood behind the scenes, watching as Phoenix went live across thousands of devices, schools, and clinics. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Messages flooded in from users expressing gratitude, sharing stories of courage, and reaching out for support. The energy was electric, a testament to the power of hope and innovation woven together. But just as Madison allowed herself a moment of triumph, a new challenge emerged. Reports surfaced that some communities were struggling to access Phoenix due to technological limitations or lack of internet connectivity. The digital divide threatened to leave behind the very people Phoenix was designed to help most. Unwilling to accept this inequality, Madison mobilized her team to develop offline features and partner with community organizations to expand access. She traveled to rural areas herself, listening to stories, learning about barriers, and working tirelessly to ensure no one was left out. Each visit reinforced her belief that technology must serve as a bridge, not a barrier. Throughout these efforts, Madison remained grounded by the love and support of her family. Her mother's quiet strength and her father's tentative but growing presence reminded her that healing was a journey, both for individuals and for those we love. As autumn deepened, Madison reflected on how far she had come. From a curious girl with a spark of an idea to a young leader steering a movement that touched millions. The journey had been anything but easy, marked by moments of doubt, failure, and profound learning. But it had also been filled with joy, connection, and the unshakable belief that even the smallest voices could ignite the greatest change. One evening, as she gazed out over the city skyline, the silver star charm resting against her heart, Madison felt a quiet sense of peace. The road ahead was still long and unpredictable, but she was ready to walk it, guided by empathy, courage, and the unwavering hope that had always lit her way. Winter settled quietly over the city, blanketing the streets in a soft layer of snow that muffled the usual hustle and bustle. Inside her room, Madison stared at the glowing screen, fingers hovering over the keyboard. The glow illuminated her determined face, a reflection of the battles fought and won, and those still to come. Phoenix had grown beyond her wildest dreams, yet, as with any journey worth taking, the challenges had deepened in complexity. Recently, an unexpected wave of criticism had started to surface. Mental health professionals praised Phoenix's reach but questioned the reliance on artificial intelligence in such delicate areas. Public forums buzzed with debate, some warning that technology could never replace the nuanced understanding of a human therapist. Madison felt the sting of these words, but she knew they were born from genuine concern. Her mission was not to replace humans but to amplify compassion and accessibility. Still, the doubt weighed on her. To confront this head-on, Madison organized a panel with leading psychologists, educators, and users of Phoenix. It was a space for honest conversation, for airing fears and exploring possibilities. Sitting beside experts whose work she admired, Madison listened intently, her youthful voice steady but humble. She shared stories of users who had found a lifeline in Phoenix, stories that carried the heartbeat of the project. The dialogue was a turning point. Experts acknowledged the potential of technology when combined with human care, emphasizing partnership over replacement. For Madison, it was a reaffirmation that progress came from collaboration and openness, not isolation. That same week, Madison received a letter from Lily, the girl from the small Midwestern town whose struggles had once pulled at her heartstrings. Lily's words shimmered with newfound strength and gratitude, a testament to the impact of Phoenix's evolving support. It was a quiet victory, but one that echoed louder than any headline. Winter's chill pushed Madison inward, sparking moments of reflection. Between coding sprints and schoolwork, she found solace in her family's warmth. Her mother's gentle wisdom and her father's growing attempts at connection filled the spaces left by uncertainty. Their story, like hers, was one of healing, imperfect but hopeful. One snowy afternoon, Madison and Zoe bundled up and visited a local community center hosting a mental health workshop. Watching teens share openly, supported by caring adults and Phoenix's guidance, Madison saw the ripple effect of her dream come to life. The room was alive with laughter and tears, vulnerability and courage, a testament to the power of connection in all its forms. That night, Madison sat by her window, the silver star necklace cool against her skin. She thought about the road ahead, uncertain, winding, and full of promise. The lessons of this journey had shaped her, teaching her that courage was not the absence of fear but the strength to face it. With renewed resolve, Madison began sketching plans for Phoenix's next evolution, one that would deepen empathy, enhance accessibility, and honor the complex beauty of the human spirit. The future was unknown, but the spark that had started it all burned brighter than ever. As snowflakes drifted silently past her window, Madison smiled, ready to embrace whatever came next with an open heart and unshakable hope. The arrival of spring brought a renewed sense of possibility, as buds pushed through the thawing earth and sunlight stretched longer into the evening. For Madison, it felt like a fresh chapter unfolding, one shaped by reflection, growth, and the quiet strength born from everything she'd endured. Phoenix was no longer just her creation, it had become a symbol of resilience, of connection in a world that sometimes felt fractured and overwhelming. This spring, however, held a challenge unlike any before. As Phoenix's influence grew, Madison faced increasing scrutiny from powerful voices in tech and education. Some questioned the ethical boundaries of AI in mental health, others feared dependency on technology, and a few even accused her of overstepping the delicate line between innovation and intrusion. These voices echoed loudly in boardrooms, on social media, and even in unexpected corners of her personal life. Madison felt the weight of responsibility press harder than ever. The dream she had nurtured since she was a child was now a lightning rod for debate and doubt. But she refused to let fear dictate the future. Instead, Madison took a bold step. She invited her critics to join her in an unprecedented collaboration. The initiative aimed to bring together skeptics, advocates, users, and experts in a shared space to redesign Phoenix with transparency, ethics, and humanity at its core. It was a daring move, fueled by her belief that progress came from listening, not silencing. The collaboration was intense and often difficult. Long discussions stretched into the early morning hours, filled with passionate arguments, moments of frustration, and occasional breakthroughs. Madison's youthful optimism sometimes collided with seasoned cynicism, but she held fast to her vision of a technology that served people, not profits or prestige. Through this process, Phoenix evolved again, becoming more adaptive, more transparent, and more deeply attuned to the diverse needs of its users. The team developed features that allowed users to customize their experience, ensuring that Phoenix respected boundaries and fostered autonomy. Privacy protections were strengthened beyond industry standards, a commitment Madison championed fiercely. Meanwhile, Madison's personal life blossomed alongside the project's transformation. Her friendship with Zoe deepened into a bond of unwavering support, their laughter and shared dreams a balm against the storm of challenges. Family dinners became sacred spaces where vulnerability was met with love, and old wounds slowly began to heal. One afternoon, as Madison walked through a sun-dappled park with her mother, they talked about the journey, the sacrifices, the victories, and the lessons learned. Her mother's eyes shone with pride and quiet admiration, a reminder that strength often comes from the roots that hold us steady. As the collaboration reached its climax, Madison was invited to speak at an international conference on technology and ethics. Standing before a diverse audience, she shared the story of Phoenix, its triumphs and trials, its human heart and technological soul. Her words resonated deeply, a testament to the power of courage, humility, and relentless hope. After the conference, Madison felt a profound sense of purpose. The road ahead was still uncertain, but she was no longer walking it alone. Phoenix had grown into a movement, one fueled by the belief that technology, when guided by empathy, could truly change lives. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Madison sat quietly in her room. The silver star necklace around her neck gleamed softly in the fading light. She closed her eyes and let a gentle smile spread across her face, knowing that every step of this journey, the highs, the lows, the unexpected twists, had brought her here. And she was ready for whatever came next. The spring air was thick with possibility as Madison stood on the stage, the applause washing over her like a warm tide. She looked out at the sea of faces, faces shaped by hope, struggle, resilience, and felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The journey that had started as a flicker of an idea in her small bedroom had grown into something far greater than she ever imagined. Phoenix was no longer just an app, a project, or a dream. It was a movement that was transforming lives, building bridges between technology and the human heart. Tonight's event marked the official launch of Phoenix's latest iteration, a version born from collaboration, transparency, and the relentless pursuit of empathy. It was the culmination of years of sweat, tears, late nights, and unyielding belief. And as Madison looked out at the crowd, she knew this was only the beginning. After the applause died down, Madison's thoughts drifted back to the early days. The nights she cried alone, feeling the weight of doubt and loneliness, the moments of triumph when a user's message reminded her why she kept going, the silver star necklace around her neck, a symbol of hope and courage passed down from her mother. All of it had led to this moment. Her mind flashed to Lily, the young girl from the Midwest, whose journey had intertwined with hers in the most unexpected ways. Madison smiled softly, remembering Lily's first tentative messages and the strength she found through Phoenix. Stories like Lily's were the heartbeat of everything Madison had built. Backstage, Zoe greeted her with a hug that spoke volumes, of friendship, of shared dreams, of battles fought side by side. Madison felt the warmth of that connection, a reminder that no matter how far she went, she would never walk alone. Later, as the event wound down, Madison found herself standing on the rooftop, the city lights twinkling below like scattered stars. Her mother joined her, the two standing in comfortable silence. The silver star necklace caught the breeze, glinting in the moonlight. "You've done something incredible," her mother said softly. "Not just with Phoenix, but with your heart." Madison nodded, feeling a swell of gratitude and peace. "It wasn't easy," she admitted. "There were moments I wanted to give up. But I learned that courage isn't about never being afraid. It's about moving forward anyway." Her mother smiled, squeezing her hand. "And that's a lesson we all need to remember." As the night deepened, Madison reflected on the journey ahead. Phoenix would continue to grow, evolve, and reach more people in need. But she also knew that technology was only part of the solution. The real change came from connection, from listening, understanding, and showing up for one another. With that thought, Madison made a silent promise, to keep walking this path with an open heart, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Because in the end, it was the human spirit, the resilience, the compassion, the love, that truly made all the difference. The silver star hung gently against her chest, a quiet reminder of the light within, guiding her through the unknown. And as dawn began to break over the city, Madison smiled, ready to embrace the next chapter, whatever it might be, with hope, courage, and the unshakable belief that even the smallest voice can spark the greatest change. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?